South Dakota Senator John Thune chairs the Senate Republican Conference. He is my guest now. Senator Thune, what happens on Friday?
Well, ultimately on Friday, we'll get to a final vote, John, on Gorsuch. On Thursday is when we'll have a series of procedural votes. The Democrats are conducting an unprecedented filibuster of this Supreme Court nominee. And as a consequence of that, we're going to have a series of votes on Thursday that allows us to proceed to get to where we can vote on his nomination at some point, probably Friday night. That's the timeline at the moment. We would like to see the Democrats work with us so that all those procedural votes aren't necessary, but at the moment they have decided to do something that hasn't happened in the 230-year history of the Senate, and that is to conduct a successful partisan one-party filibuster of a Supreme Court nominee.
But if Republicans change the precedent, go nuclear, allow a Supreme Court appointment to be passed on a simple majority vote, are you doing permanent damage to the institution?
I don't think so, John. I think we are restoring what has been the history on the Supreme Court. Every Supreme Court nominee that's been considered, and President Clinton had two of them in his first term in office, Justices Breyer and Ginsburg. President Obama had two in his first term in office, Justices Sotomayor and Kagan, all of whom were confirmed without a Republican filibuster. And so this is filibustering Supreme Court noms is unprecedented. We believe the history and tradition is in preserving that and restoring that is really 51 vote simple majority up and down vote in the Senate, and that's essentially what will happen as a result of what the steps that we'll take on Thursday and going forward. And the Democrats, of course, paved the way for this in 2013 when they went to 51 votes for appellate and lower court nominees.
When Judge Gorsuch came before the Senate a decade or so ago to be confirmed as a federal appeals court judge, he was confirmed unanimously. What has changed?
I think the politics of the moment, and there was an election that the Democrats still haven't gotten over. Obviously, there are a lot of Democrats here in the Senate who are in denial of the outcome of the election. They don't like this president. They don't want to have to support this president's nominee for the court. But the arguments that they've been making, they can't say that Judge Gorsuch isn't well qualified. He simply is, and everybody agrees on that. They can't say that he's not mainstream. He's been involved with 2,700 cases on the 10th Circuit since he was confirmed there a decade ago. And 99% of those cases, he's been in the majority. 97% have been unanimous. So if he's not mainstream, then nobody on the 10th Circuit, most of whom, by the way, have been appointed by Democrat presidents, aren't mainstream either. So the Democrats are finding it hard, I think, to attack him. I think the American people find him to be a judge that they view to be not only well qualified but mainstream, and somebody who will exercise impartiality when it comes to applying the law and the Constitution, which is what you want a judge to do. He's very much about calling balls and strikes. I think that's what most of the American people want to see in a justice on the Supreme Court.
Want to talk with you, Senator, also about this latest controversial and provocative move from North Korea. That country fired a missile that failed a short time after it was launched. It comes the day before President Trump meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping, only hours after the White House warned that North Korea has run out of time on its nuclear program. I know that you're not in charge of diplomacy as a U.S. Senator, but what would be your take on the best way to proceed with North Korea?
I think the best way to get North Korea's attention is to have China, who has the most leverage, certainly economic leverage on North Korea, to step up and exercise that. They're in the best position to corral North Korea and some of these ambitions that they have. And so I hope that these discussions this weekend between President Trump and the Chinese president actually get us to a result where China agrees to be more active in their efforts to try and rein in some of this bad behavior by North Korea. But obviously it's a very serious issue. We have to take it seriously, and we have to be prepared, the United States does as well, to take the steps that are necessary to contain that threat.
Senator Thune, we're going to have to end it there. I appreciate your spending some time with us today. The chair of the Republican Conference,
Thanks,
Senator
John
Thune.